times get hard, and we're here to help at NorthPoint.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of NorthPoint Making Health Happen. My name is Lisa Castile, your host for the program. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This series is being brought to you by NorthPoint Health and Wellness Center. We want to connect with you about topics in health and wellness that impact our community. And we want to provide you with practical tips and resources you can use. Today, we will be discussing childhood vaccines with NorthPoint Pediatrician, Dr. Laura Solyntjes. Dr. Solyntjes is a pediatrician and has been in this community for at least 13 years, but only here at NorthPoint for a year. In fact, July 15th will be her 1-year anniversary. So happy almost anniversary.
I know. Aren't you surprised?
That is so exciting. I love it. Okay, tell me 3 things that you love about NorthPoint.
Oh, so first of all, I love all the resources. I mean, it's not just a clinic. It's a clinic plus like a food shelf plus NorthPoint Inc., but they also have an eye doctor, the dental, the behavioral health. It's just so nice to have everything at our fingertips.
Yes.
And I would say anybody who works at NorthPoint is automatically great. Like, it's so hard to meet somebody you don't like here, and I don't think I've done that.
Yes,
you know?
we have a great family here. It's really a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, okay, a little bit about your background. So you did medical school at the University of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And then you went on to do your residency at Kansas City at Children's Mercy. How was that?
Oh, I loved it.
You loved it? What did you love about it?
So it's a freestanding children's hospital. It's all children's stuff. They have really good experts. I would say on the western side of Missouri, like it's the go-to. So you see so much.
Cool. All right. And so now you let us know that you've always been drawn to working with the immigrant population in underserved communities. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did you what made you want to become a pediatrician? Why did you settle on that specific calling?
Right. Whew, that's such a deep question.
It is a deep question.
I would say even before the immigrants, like the pediatric piece was always there. Even when I was younger, I always worked with kids in some capacity. Like if there was an opportunity, I always took it. So it was like teaching or volunteering or doing something with kids. I did it.
Okay.
I was always good at science and math. But then my 11th grade year at Hopkins High School, so locally, I had a physiology and anatomy class, and it was amazing. And it like told me why the body does this or how it did it or why we do it this way. I just thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the step that made me go into medicine. As far as like the immigrant piece, I think I always really liked learning about things that maybe sounded different but weren't necessarily different, you know? So learning about other populations and how they work or societies or things like that, I think it's really fascinating, but I also think the more you understand, the more that you know that they are just like us, you know?
Yeah.
And I think not everybody can work with like the underserved or the immigrant population. But for me, it's not hard, and it's probably, and I mean, it's not even work. It is what I want to do.
It comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
So it's not a job. Well, that's what they say. Find the thing that you love, and it won't feel like a job, right? That's cool. All right, so you are married. You have 2 teenage kids, and you love reading and watching the Lynx. Going to Lynx games, huh?
Yeah.
So how are the Lynx doing this season? Because I haven't been to the Lynx game in a while.
Oh, they're like the best.
Are they?
They're going all the way this year. So they got like second place last year, but this is their year, and they have so many returning players. And I could talk the whole hour about Lynx. I think you want me to, right?
Oh no, I don't think we want to the whole hour. But they have a new player this year, right?
Are you talking about Peely? Or?
Yes.
She was there last year, but
she
yes.
was. Okay. I'm behind. I'm just finding out about her.
Yes.
Okay.
Which she's great.
Phenomenal?
Yeah, she's a fan favorite.
Okay.
So.
Well, listen, thank you for being on the program today.
Is it my turn now?
Oh, do you want to ask
Yeah.
me something? Oh, boy,
So-
here we go.
We're going to start off with my questions for Lisa, because I don't know how many of you know her behind the microphone. And when I was looking at all of the past videos, nobody asked her questions. So it's my
I love
turn.
that. I love it.
So I told you I'm a big
Yep.
reader. So
Yes.
I am curious, what is one of the
Yes.
most profound books, or a book that you just keep like ruminating in your head and thinking about?
You know, I'm going to answer it this way. So I have a huge love of reading as well. We share that in common, and basketball. I love basketball too.
I should take you sometime.
That would be fun, actually. I'd
Yeah.
really like to do that. So my love of reading is connected to my relationship with my dad, and he's been gone a couple of years, but he was the one who introduced me to reading, introduced me to chapter books. So those are my first memories of influential reading, was the Little House series, I have to say. Probably everybody says that. Maybe not. But I was a farm kid, and so I really related to the characters in that series. But there was one book in particular, I think, that had a huge impact on me, and that was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And I think that was the first time that fiction was so close to reality, right? And I felt for the first time devastated by characters, just like really moved by the situation and what was going on with them. So that's my answer there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I read nonfiction and fiction, but I do love that fiction can almost take you farther and emotionally like do leaps that you never thought about.
Absolutely.
Too.
And I think that's why it was so appealing to me as a young person, was because I did grew up in the country, and there wasn't a lot of stuff to do out there. So reading was huge, right? We always had books around, and reading can take you anywhere in the world. You could be anywhere. You can hear any voice inside your head, right? So I always loved that.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Good answer, Lisa.
All right.
Good.
Well, let's give you a question now. All right. So we know that preventative health care is very important. It's critical. Can you tell us a little bit, or can you give us some advice for parents to ensure that their children stay healthy and develop well?
I mean, I appreciate that you're leading me. So yes, preventative healthcare is how you do it. And in fact, like so much in the baby, toddler, childhood is about, do they meet the milestones? Are they growing properly? And if you see them day to day, you don't really know. Like for instance, if a child has a speech delay, they're saying some words, but they're actually not up to the standard. Like when they're 2, they should have at least 50 words and have 2-word phrases. But as a parent, you don't know that. So you're like, I think they say 15 words. They're probably fine, but they're actually not. So going into that visit, you can see that, oh, maybe they need a little bit of help in that area. And we also know that the sooner you can do therapies for anything like physical therapy, speech, things like that, the greater the improvement you see right from the get-go. So like if you start speech at 2, who knows, they might be done by kindergarten and have a great vocabulary, so then they don't have to worry about that later.
Okay.
I think so. That's definitely one of the ways. Also, we look at, to make sure there's no anemia or high lead level. Like in children, when you have a high lead level, it not only can cause anemia or like fatigue or tiredness, it can also cause learning and developmental problems. So we would rather check that level to make sure it's not on the rise. So then we can do things to prevent it from going higher, because if it's higher, that's a really hard hill to climb or hard to solve when we could have prevented it earlier.
Early on. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. What are some of the most common childhood health issues that you see today?
Well, I mean, I would say there's like, in my head, there's like acute and chronic. So there's things that are happening right now. So those are like simple like colds or ear infections or pneumonias, things like that. Maybe stomach aches, headaches, things like that. And then there's kind of the chronic things. So sleeping issues, maybe attention issues, maybe anxiety and depression, things like that.
Wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting that answer. I was not.
In terms of what?
I was not expecting sleeping Well, maybe the anxiety. I thought about that, but the sleeping piece.
Yeah.
What's with the sleeping thing?
Well, I mean, partially, I think it's screens. So when you're on a screen, and
Yeah.
anybody can stay up late watching a show, and then everything gets dysregulated.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids are not getting enough outside time, and you know that kind of helps with the day-night melatonin thing. I think. If you don't get a good night's sleep, the next day can be horrible, or in 2 days from now. And I think we have this, we talk about like sleep hygiene, where it's like no screens for 2 hours before bed, use the bed for just a bed, don't do studying or don't do reading in there, so your brain starts to set. Make sure you get exercise, make sure you're outside, make sure you know, drink a lot of water, but there's just a lot of pieces to that. So if anything falls, sleep kind of goes away.
Sure. Is what is impacted. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Do you want to ask a question?
I
now?
would love to.
Okay.
So I have a guess for this, but we'll see if I'm right.
Okay.
If you had a personal mascot, what animal would it be?
Oh, I want to know what your guess is first.
Well, but what if I say something and it's like you're gonna lie to me and
I'm
say,
not.
okay,
I'm going to tell you the truth.
I think it's a lion.
You think it's a lion? Really? Now, why would you say that?
I just think like a lion with a huge mane and that it's like prideful, like and regal. I think that would be perfect for you.
I love that, but so opposite. You're gonna laugh at what I feel my mascot is. That is the emu.
You don't want. You're so close to flying, but you can't get off the ground.
Love it. Yes. I just think those birds are hysterical. They're so comical looking to me. They're all soft and fuzzy and tall and awkward looking. And I don't know. I just feel like the birds don't take themselves too seriously.
That is so interesting on like what you perceive yourself in versus I. Because I've known you pretty closely for a while. But
that's my insight.
And that's very insightful for me.
See, I'm being vulnerable during this interview.
I like it.
All right.
I like it.
Okay, let's keep going with you. The guests want to hear all about the pediatrics. Okay, so I do want to talk about vaccines because that is so many sources of conversations with parents and non-parents. So I want to talk about what childhood vaccines are important for child's health and development, and how do they protect the community through herd immunity? Because not everybody understands what that is.
Right. Okay. So I will do my best to answer that. So which shots are important? They're actually, all of the current recommendations by the CDC are important and for different ways. So like, when you're a child, our first round in clinic, we do at 2 months because at that time you can start to mount an immune system yourself, and we prevent very serious infections. So at the 2-month visit, we prevent the top 2 types of meningitis: ear infections, pneumonia, whooping cough, and polio. I mean, and then rotavirus, which is like a diarrhea illness. They're all very, very important, and I couldn't ever tease out one. And in fact, I would say I try to push the 2-month as much as possible, and then I was like, we can negotiate later because I just don't want to cause any serious harm to your baby, and if you don't. So I think one of the misconceptions of vaccines is if you choose not to, sorry, my phone.
It's okay.
So if you choose not to, that is a choice that doesn't have any consequences. And that's not true. If you choose not to, then your child is more vulnerable to that infection. So they could get more ear infections. That would be a simple like reaction to what your choice is. And that's, I don't know, like anything that could cause your baby more harm in the long run versus like the normal side effects for shots are possibly a fever, but most of the time less than 10% of kids get a fever, but a little sore leg or fussiness versus like a really ear infection, meningitis, whooping cough, you know, sometimes you have to go to the hospital for that.
Sure.
as far as herd immunity, what I think of is when you have a community, there's always going to be people who cannot have the vaccine for some reason. They're vulnerable. So they maybe have cancer or immunosuppressed or have lupus, or they're really, really young. So they can't get the vaccine. But if we have vaccines for everybody else, it's harder for those certain pathogens or the sicknesses to get into there because they're not passing it around in that community.
Okay. That's very simple. That makes complete sense. Yeah.
So then the more holes, the more it can get to them.
Sure. Okay. And spreads. Okay. How have vaccines schedules and recommendations changed over the years?
So, I mean, when I was younger, we didn't have the vaccine for chickenpox or varicella. So we all had to just get varicella, and they always had like chickenpox parties, because then the younger you got chickenpox, the better. But what we do know now is we have the vaccine, which is good, because if you get the chickenpox disease, there's a chance that the chickenpox have lesions in your brain, and you could become brain damaged. So that's just not a good option. So having that shot. And then at first it was just one shot, but then they found that one shot, I think it protects about 85% of the time. And so if you do a booster, and we do that right before kindergarten, I think it bumps it up to like 97 to 99%. So those are new. The HPV, we didn't know that certain viruses can cause cancer in the past, but now we do. So we have a vaccine against it.
So let me ask you, for your childhood vaccine appointments, do you have parents come in and you explain vaccines and address their issues with them, or how does that work?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I usually start off saying like, okay, we're going to do 3 and then also a liquid. And then I break it down. This is why we do it. And actually, once they get to the teenagers, I talk to the kid. I was like, okay, we have 3 today to do. One is a tetanus. Have you heard about tetanus? It comes from either dirt or metal scrapes, things like that. The bacteria is really hard to treat once it gets in the body. It goes into the muscles. It squeezes so hard it can break bones. So it's a very painful thing, but we can prevent it with this. And the kid's like, okay, I'll get the shot, And then when I talk about meningitis and HPV, I always think it's important to tell them why. And I also give them the choice. If I give them the information and they say, I just don't want to do it, that is their choice. I will never push. Because it's also about building trust. Because if I do that, they're not going to come back. And if there is some serious concern later, they're like, I don't know if I should go to her or just not even go somewhere.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And then, I mean, there are lots of different communities who are not vaccinating fully, and I found my best resort is, or what I do is I let them choose. I have them come back, and eventually, if there is trust, they can slowly do it, you know? And like anything in life, fear is a big motivator. Like, you can know all of the things, but as soon as somebody says, oh, don't do that, my cousin had this bad thing, they're only going to think about the fear. And so it's really trying to rewire and like, okay, let's listen to the facts instead of what you're scared.
And I think in our community especially, a lot of the guests that we have here at NorthPoint, word of mouth travels, right? So it's easy, if you were as a provider, to lose trust with a patient the next thing you know, because I've told a cousin and they've told somebody else, and then the next time it's like, don't go see Dr. Laura because she doesn't give out those good suckers. Like,
we only give out stickers here, which I think
suckers?
Dr. Brooks would like, but
Oh, yeah, of course. All right.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. I have another question for you.
All right.
Where is the most relaxing place you have been to?
Okay, I've traveled a lot, and I would have to say Key West.
Oh.
Surprisingly, right?
Yeah, you've been all over.
I've been all over the world, but Key West was somewhere, and it could have been just the time of my life. in that time of my life that I just lost myself there.
So
Because
what did
everything
you
is
do?
slow. It's so slow. It's very laid back in Key West. I was actually there for work. This was years ago. And I just think the people there, it's just so calm with the water, it's blue skies, it's beautiful. I mean, you know, if you have a hurricane or something, then not so much. But for the most part, it's just easy breezy days. You know, there's not a lot to do, just very touristy down there. And I don't know, I just love it.
Yeah, so that's where your mind goes if
Yeah.
you need a little break.
To Key West,
Yeah.
yes. I can still see the postcards, yes.
Very
All right.
nice.
So let's talk about some of the common misconceptions and fears about childhood vaccines and how you address those with parents or children.
Well, the biggest one right now is the autism
Yeah.
one. So this is a word of mouth and fear that we have had to talk it over and over. But what happened is there was a study done in California quite a bit ago that linked the MMR vaccine with autism, but it was only I feel like there was less than 20 kids, and the information got fudged. The guy said kids were developing normal when actually they weren't, and there was already signs of it before the MMR. So he falsified information, and he's actually been disbarred. He's no longer a doctor, but it poked a hole into everything. And then he goes around and he speaks to communities right now. So it's just all this misinformation that we have to
It's
fight.
a hot topic.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends that are on both sides of the aisle with that.
I think we all do.
Yeah, some friends who have children that are autistic, and so there's a lot of strong opinions about that. So what do you say when you have a parent that comes in?
Well, I try to, it depends, I always meet the families where they're at. So it depends on what they are. So I don't know if you would be surprised, but one of my college jobs is I did door-to-door talking about like an environmental thing, and I learned a lot about how to size up a person. So if you go to the door and you talk to them, they're a yes or a no or a maybe. So if they're a no, don't spend your time. Like you are not going to convince them no matter what you are. And like if they're a yes, they want to do the vaccine, so you don't have to go into detail. If they're maybes, those are where you spend your money. You know, like where you get what they need to make an informed decision. So if they want to know about the history of, you know, who falsified the information and why, then I'll say it. A lot of times families will say, I don't want to vaccinate because it causes autism. I'll say, well, actually it doesn't, but the one that you're talking about was one shot, the MMR. We can hold that later, but all of these other ones have never been in the media for this, and these are why I think you need those.
Okay.
You know, so I piece out a little bit, and if they're like, okay, that's fine, then I stop. But if they ask more questions, I'll keep going.
Okay. Good approach. That is a very good approach.
And I think I do that for everything in life. Ha!
We got the 5-minute warning. Okay. We're good though. We're getting through this pretty good.
All right. What piece of technology is really frustrating for you to use?
That would be remote controls.
Yeah.
I think they're all worthless. Seriously, there's too many buttons, and most of the time they don't work.
And then you have like 3 or 4 for the everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
forget that. Done with the remotes.
Yeah. Mine is a specific parking garage in Minneapolis that they want us to use like electronic stuff, and they have like a QR code, and it never
my
goes right, and
gosh.
it's like the bane of my existence, but it's pretty cheap for Lynx games, so I keep doing it. And
You keep trying. You keep showing up. I love that because you're committed to the links.
in cheaper parking.
And cheap parking. There you go. Yeah. So how can parents and caregivers easily find accurate, up-to-date information about childhood vaccines?
Yeah, so, and things change. There's always going to be more and more research. I would say the best place to go is the AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics. So that's what certifies all the pediatricians here and tells them how to practice in the United States. And I mean, I get mailings and I read everything there, and that's going to be the most accurate.
Okay, the AAP.
Yep, AAP. If you go aap.org, that's their website.
AAP.org. Great. All right. In terms of our discussion today, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience? Any advice?
Oh gosh, that's so open-ended.
Yeah.
Any advice about anything?
Yeah, anything related to pediatrics.
Oh. I was thinking outside. I was like, okay. Well, I'm going to tie it back to our loves. I think one of the best things you can do in younger kids is to read to them. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how you're reading, because like I had one who the mom's like, well, I read Spanish and she's trying to learn English in the ESL. What am I supposed to do? I was like, I don't care what you read. You could just look at a picture and describe the picture. But the reading is so important.
Why is it important?
It just helps for brain development, but also it's such a connection with the families too.
Yes.
And they get so much out of it, and you can pick fiction books, you can pick nonfiction, you know, like what is the kid interested in, and like help foster that curiosity.
Absolutely.
So
great. Well, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Excited about your anniversary coming up here. How are you going to celebrate?
I don't know, is it Tuesday? Maybe we'll celebrate with our group.
Maybe so. You could have like a craft available to your patients. Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, I love crafts.
I do too.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's Making Health Happen. We want you to know that we're here to partner with you and to help make health happen in your life. To learn more about NorthPoint, call us at 612-543-2500 or visit us on the web at northpointhealth.org.